Hello, today we are going to learn about force. There are many types of force. There are frictional force, gravitational force, electrostatic force, magnetic force, and electrical force. Now, force is very important in our life. Without force, stationary objects will remain static and moving objects will continue moving forever. All objects will also remain the same because there is no force to change their shape nor their sizes. Imagine what life would be without gravitational force. All of us, the vehicles, the animals, the objects around us floating everywhere in mid-air. What if there is no magnetic force? Instruments like the compass will not work. It will be difficult for pilots and sailors to find their directions. Musical instruments like this violin would no longer be making music if there is no frictional force between the hair on this bow with the strings. So, you can imagine how difficult life would be without force. In order to understand better about force, we are going to learn further on frictional force or friction, its advantages, disadvantages, ways to increase friction, and of course, ways to reduce friction. Before we go on, let's recall the bits that we've already learned about friction. Friction is defined as the force that resists motion when the surface of one object comes into contact with the surface of another. Friction acts in the direction opposing to that of motion and slows down moving object. A block of wood, when pushed along a table, will eventually come to rest because there is an opposing force provided by the table on the block. That opposing force is frictional force or friction. Now, friction can also exist between stationary objects. But can we see friction? Of course not. Friction is the invisible force that helps us to do our daily activities like standing up straight, walking, or running. You see, without friction, it's difficult for everything like you and me to remain stationary. It's slippery. It's like standing on ice. Phew! Fortunately, we have friction. But like any normal situations, friction has its own advantages and disadvantages. Now, let's discuss the advantages of friction first. Friction prevents the slipping of objects. The friction between the soles of our shoes and the floor allows us to walk without slipping. Friction between tires and the surface of the road allows vehicles to move without skidding. Friction also allows animals to climb trees without slipping. Friction provides resistance to motion. For example, a moving vehicle needs to use its brakes to slow down or to stop the vehicle. Friction is used in the braking pads to slow down or to stop the vehicle. Now, imagine what will happen to vehicles on the road if friction does not exist. There will be accidents everywhere. Let's take another example, a simple one. This is a glass. When I hold this glass, it does not slip from my hand because the friction between my palm and the object that I hold allows me to grip the object. When a ladder is leaned against the wall, friction between the ladder and the wall keeps the ladder in its position. Friction also produces heat. Friction allows a match to be lit. Primitive man makes fire by rubbing two wooden sticks together. Friction due to the rubbing of the sticks together produces heat. This heat will then produce fire. Music is produced when the strings on this instrument is stroked. You see, the friction that exists between the hair on the bow and the string produces music. I'm not much of a musician, but I like music very much. These advantages tells us that friction is indeed very important to us. However, friction can also cause problems. Now, let's look at the disadvantages of friction. Friction wastes energy. That is quite a heavy load. You see, when the boy pushes the heavy load, he uses more energy in order to move the object, as some energy is used to overcome frictional force. What if there is no friction? Very easy. See? Friction produces unnecessary heat. For example, the friction between the parts of a moving machine produces heat. This heat can damage the machine. The damage will not have happened when friction is controlled. Friction can be controlled by oiling the parts of the machine. Friction causes wear and tear. When we walk or run, after some time, friction makes the soles of our shoes to wear and tear. When that happens, it's time to get yourself a new pair of shoes. Tires of vehicles will also become worn out after some time. If we don't change the tires, road accidents can happen, especially on a rainy day. Even though friction has its disadvantages, friction is still considered an important phenomenon. Sometimes, we need to increase friction in certain areas of our lives. For example, the surfaces of roads need to be rough so that vehicles can move smoothly and steadily without skidding. Worn out tires must be replaced with new ones so as to increase the friction between tires and road surfaces to avoid vehicles from skidding. Shoes with rough soles have better friction. They can grip better, thus prevent slipping. There are also times when friction is a nuisance. We cannot remove friction, but friction can be reduced by using wheels. Wheels are used to move vehicles. Wheels are also used to move objects. Rods. In the early years, men used rods to move heavy objects. Ball bearings. Ball bearings are used to reduce friction in moving parts of an engine. Oil or grease. Oil or grease is used to smoothen surfaces in contact and reduce friction, such as in door hinge. Air cushion. A hovercraft uses air cushion to reduce friction when it moves. It can travel fast on water as there is a layer of air cushion between its base and the surface of the water. And that's today's lesson. Thank you and goodbye.